Haven't been able to watch the news much yet because back surgery, all that. But I did see yesterday that there were airstrikes yesterday in southern Iran, and then at at least 10 minutes before we went on the air, Iran International was also saying that there were more airstrikes and that they were waiting on the Islamic regime to respond yet. My main question is: the ceasefire effectively over, or are they just testing the waters at this point? Thank you.
Okay. No, thank you, because that's a very good question. Okay, and mute your microphone. I will respond. Mute your microphone. Okay, so this is a very good question, and we should talk about it more because there are different perspectives on this: the USA perspective, the Islamic Republic perspective, and the Arab countries around the Persian Gulf perspective, especially the UAE and Saudi Arabia. Let's just say UAE and Saudi Arabia. These are the most important countries right now. Okay. So the United States is saying, nope, that is not a violation of ceasefire. In fact, President Trump says that was his word, not mine, love tap. That was just a love tap to the Islamic Republic. That's the phrase that he used. So no ceasefire. He was basically, he said it was like very insignificant, so not a big deal. The Islamic Republic is saying that was absolutely a violation of ceasefire. So they think, obviously, they will say that. But more interesting, like when the perspective of the United States and the Islamic Republic were both predictable. But what's more interesting and more people need to talk about is how offended the UAE and Saudi Arabia are, because it wasn't just this, it was also the attacks on the UAE that President Trump did not consider a violation of the ceasefire. So the Islamic Republic attacked the UAE in the middle of the ceasefire, and the United States came out and clearly said, no, we're still in the ceasefire. So this has made the UAE and Saudi Arabia think that United States is basically treating attacks on us as not a big deal, right? And this basically, in their opinion, violates the non-written agreement between the Arab countries around the Persian Gulf and the United States, and basically the origin of the petrodollar. The petrodollar is now exaggerated these days. What backs the US dollar is not fossil fuels as much as it used to be. But this was the whole idea that anybody who attacks these Arab countries around the Persian Gulf will be attacked by United States, was the unwritten agreement between United States and these Arab countries that started the petroleum dollar idea. The whole thing, that the whole reason why the US dollar is where it is right now, and the financial domination the United States has over the world, started with this agreement, with this one agreement. And the Islam, and this is not the first time, by the way, because even if you go back to President Trump's first term, when the Islamic Republic used some drones to attack Aramco, Saudi Aramco, and President Trump didn't really respond to that, the Saudis were that was the beginning of this idea that this agreement, this alliance between these Arab countries and United States, it was being broken. But now this is the most major escalation of a threat to that relationship with the Americans not announcing that the ceasefire has been violated after the UAE was being attacked, right? This is why, apparently, according to some reports, some reports, I think it was, where was it? Was it the Wall Street Journal or was it the Washington Post? I forgot. One of these, I think it was the Wall Street Journal. Anyways, they came out and said that the reason why Project Freedom was put on pause. Project Freedom, for people who might not remember, is the operation President Trump named for the operation that was supposed to be opening the Strait of Hormuz by using American Navy to provide safety for commercial ships going through the Strait of Hormuz. So after it was announced, within 24 hours after, it was put on a pause, and people say it's because Saudi Arabia and Kuwait refused to allow Americans to use their air bases and airspace for Project Freedom, which is why President Trump put that project on pause. And the reason why they refused that was in response, apparently, to them being offended. It was as a result of them being offended for President Trump not announcing that the attack on the UAE was a violation of the ceasefire. So we also know now that now the Saudis and Kuwaitis have removed that ban, and now they're allowing Americans to use their air bases and airspace. So I don't know what happened behind the scenes that they did a reversal on that. But for years now, the leaders of these Arab countries have been worried about America not taking their responsibility, their unwritten rule that they're supposed to protect these countries' oil sales. They're not taking it too seriously anymore, and they're moving their attention is on other things. And also long term, they think America is basically trying to leave this entire region completely and focus on China. So they are desperately trying to find alternative allies to the United States, which is why they're desperate to become closer to Israel, because they can't find any alternative other than United States to provide them with that level of military capability other than Israel. And like China, Russia, they're pathetic allies when it comes to providing you security. Just go look into Africa right now. Go look into Mali. So the Russians try to replace the French in Mali to provide security against ISIS in Mali, and the French left Mali, and the Russians were trying to protect were the security guarantors instead, and Mali is being taken over now by ISIS, and the Russians are basically running away. So Russia couldn't even provide the service that the French were providing in Africa, let alone the services that Israel, United States, and Israel could provide. So this is why the Abraham Accord was so important, and this is why the Arab countries are so desperate to actually normalize their relationship with Israel, because they don't know how to do it, of course, and it's really hard, pretty much impossible to find a replacement for the United States.
You're 100% right, Armin. And also, in terms of China, they were getting their oil on the cheap, like they were getting their oil for major discounts. Now, once Iran is free, we assume they won't be able to do that anymore. But no, you are 100% right on all this, Armin. Thank you for your input.
No, thank you. Thank you for the compliment.
First to respond to Sketch.
Yes, on the petrodollar deal, like the literal deal is gone, but the effect is still there. The US is the one that guarantees your shipping. When stuff gets tough, no one else is going to show up here and start bombing people. They'll send strongly worded letters through the UN, and there'll be condemnation and much waxing poetic about what's going on, but they're not going to actually do anything. So even if there's not a deal signed on paper, people are going to be like, you know what, maybe I should sell my oil in dollars. And the BRICS deal, that was all about going against that. So all the countries that aligned with that were fighting against that, and all those were the countries that were trying to undermine this kind of security. Right? That's as far as that goes. And I think the Wars Powers Act is very important. Touched on that for a second. I'm glad Sophie's here. Wait, Sophie's still here? Yes, she is. She knows a little bit about that. I think we have to look into the War Powers Act very seriously now, because with all the stuff that's going to the Supreme Court and all the things that are being rejected and saying, no, you guys have to handle it. That's a very important part of what's going on, because this isn't just war. It's also international trade. It's also a lot of things that we can't put into politics. This is a lot of diplomatic things that should rest in the administration. And I think that's a very important thing to take into account here.
You're very right, because the United States is still, the United States role is now a little bit broader. It's not a relationship between United States and these Arab countries. It's United States military presence globally provides the security for the international maritime trade to be possible the way it is. The issue is for these Arab countries is that relationship is a lot more one-sided than before. Like when this whole thing started between these Arab countries and the United States really needed these Arab countries for a source of their energy, and these Arab countries really needed the United States for the security the United States provides. The issue is that for many reasons, including the United States having a lot of oil itself right now, but many other reasons, the United States doesn't need these Arab countries. It still needs them, obviously, but their reliance is a lot less than before. It's still very big. The United States is part of a global economy, and they are a major part of the energy market. It's just very much less than what it used to be. The reliance it becomes more one-sided. All right.
Next to respond is Ian.
Okay, I've been having a lot of conversations recently with my Iranian and also Israeli friends, and the desire for the bombing campaign to start up again has been really high, I think, and it's a very emotional issue. And I think the reason that it's so emotional is because, and understandable, is because there are executions happening all the time. There's continued aggression from Hezbollah, and so there's a lot of really good reasons to want things to go. But at the same time, you're in a sprint mentality rather than a marathon mentality. And so I just want to express why I think there's reasons why Trump probably won't be over the top with bombers and fighters above Tehran in the next few weeks. I'm not making a prediction, but he's not going to do that immediately. And the reason is because he said that he has as much time as he wants. And I think that if you think about it, he is basically sitting at his desk and he has a bunch of buttons that he can press every day. And all he has to do is press the button that decreases the leverage of the IRGC and increases his leverage. And if he does that every day, then eventually he gets to the outcome that he wants, right? And so if you just think about what leverage does the IRGC have, it's not that much, but they basically have the Strait and the hostage ships in the Strait. They have the strikes against neighboring countries. Now they have eco-terrorism. They have violence against the people inside of Iran. And then they have this one other thing that I don't think people are factoring in enough, and that is the potential of more US casualties and also the potential of a captured pilot. And so if Trump restarts airstrikes now, he risks handing them this fifth type of leverage. And I think that's why, if he has a choice of which button to press every day, he's always going to press the button that doesn't potentially give them more leverage in that area. And I know that the rescue of the first pilot was this daring and courageous thing that happened, but you also have to consider that he sat in the Situation Room for 3 days and just considered what would happen if they had captured that pilot and how the war would have gone in that case. That's my opinion. If he ever has a day where he can continue to weaken them economically while limiting his soldiers' risk, then he's always going to make that choice. And it's not because he won't risk casualties. Obviously, he will. But if he doesn't have to risk giving them more leverage in any, or even a new form of leverage, then he just won't do it. And that's my opinion about why the ceasefire just isn't going to end anytime soon.
So here's the thing, and I think Jeffrey might have some. Did Jeffrey put a 2 in the chat because he could educate us on this? Here's why I think that I don't think you need to give leverage to the Islamic Republic because of the bombardment. That plane was flying very low when that happened. Most of the bombardments, the planes are flying at a height that none of these manpads will be able to reach them. So that plane was taken down with a manpad. Okay, and the only way that you could take down a plane with a manpad is if it's flying low. And I think that at that point, maybe the Americans were confident that there is no air defense, and they were right that there's no air defense, and that's why they were flying low. It's just that those Chinese manpads were brought in, which gave the Islamic Republic soldiers the ability to take down a plane, a fighter jet that was flying low. But if most of the bombardments that you saw at the beginning of Operation Epic Fury does not require you to fly that low, and they have no air defense, and no manpad could reach the planes at that height. That's my understanding, but I'm pretty sure Jeffrey is better at military analysis. So,
Can I respond? I
Yeah,
think you're being too specific, right? It's more like this, right? Let's say there's a 1 in 10,000 chance of a incident occurring that hands them some kind of leverage. And it's not going to be exactly like it was before, but it could be something like that, right? If there's a 1 in 10,000 chance and you need to hit 40,000 targets or 10,000 targets, then you're guaranteed having some kind of incident, right? And so it's not that he won't accept those incidents. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is if there's a day where he doesn't have to incur that risk and he's still gaining on the IRGC, then he's always going to make that choice. And so once we see that stop working, if the blockade stops working and that tactic starts to quote unquote plateau, then I do think that we're going to start seeing more aggressive airstrikes and bombing campaigns and stuff like that. But until that happens, I don't think he'll do it. And it's just a logical inference. It's just my perspective.
okay.
All right, Jeffrey, go ahead.
About that, I don't know what happened. I got bounced from the room. Yeah, so I've heard that kind of argument before, like co-opting the concern or putting forward citing a superficial concern regarding my fellow servicemen as a way to servicemen concern wash like non-interventionism. The simple fact is the bombing campaign that they're looking at almost assuredly isn't going to be like having strike aircraft fly within range of mad pads, bro. No. Arm is right on the money. And we learn just like the enemy does. At that point, I could say, you know what, Ian, there's a 1 in a gazillion chance that a transgendered zebra breaks into your house and shits on your PlayStation if we don't kill mullahs. So we better not do that. Yeah? Horse shit. Keep my buddies out of your mouth, bro.
Hey,
Fucking
don't be. Ian is great though. He's asking a question. Don't be mean to
Dude, I get
other
angry when
members here.
people do that with my fellow soldiers, bro.
Listen, Jeffrey, I
No,
really don't think you understood what I was saying. So I
no,
really
he
don't
was
think
being. Yeah, Jeffrey have some really good information, but Ian was just
Yeah.
being like asking a question, and I think we
Yeah.
need to be nice to each other in this community. Okay, so let's
Yeah.
just if
It's
people have
just about
questions.
All right, man. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I'm just saying.
putting words in my mouth, and I'm making an argument about timing and about
He said-
strategy.
You just
Okay.
sat there and said, first off, you're not trained in strategy. And second off, you just sat there and said that President Trump is going to make a decision regarding policy
That's his
based
guess.
on the 1 in
That's his
10,000.
guess. That's his guess. It's okay.
Yeah, I get
we
it,
don't
man.
need. Yeah, it's okay.
I get it. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
But it's okay. And thank you, Jeffrey, for your opinion. And Ian, I hope you don't get. I hope you feel like because Jeffrey, you're an expert. Not all of us here are experts. Okay, so we might have some guesses, and that is wrong, and we're here for you to correct us if we guess wrong. Okay.
Yeah,
And,
you're right. I apologize.
yeah. Okay. Thank you. Thank you for saying that. I really respect that. Thank you. Okay, there was a super chat I wanted to ask Jeffrey. Can you respond to this? Because somebody on YouTube just said Roman Vikings is saying there were a lot of air defense interceptors over Tehran visible yesterday. Does that worry you? No.
What I saw, at least from the videos that Ian showed yesterday, and it was a good find, Ian. Thank you for showing that. Looked a lot like low-level anti-aircraft artillery. I'm not really worried if like Central Command is very good at what they do. Sure, the Chi-Coms and Putin flooded in like mad pad shoulder-mounted missiles, and they caught an F-15 with their pants down. That's not going to happen again. There's a reason they're training heavy aircraft, right? B-1s, B-52s to carry out strikes in the area. They can fly at a very high altitude and still have pinpoint accuracy well out of the range of anything like low-level anti-aircraft artillery and or mad pads. Hey, Ian, look, man, I'm sorry I said what I said, bro. It's just a lot of people tried that during GWAT and it was super disingenuous. So that was me voicing a unmotivated bias. Forgive me for getting a little rough there. That was wrong.
I appreciate you saying that, Jeffrey. And I'm actually, Ian, actually, even if we think Ian might be wrong, I'm glad that he brought it up so that we could consider it. I appreciate you both.
You know me.
Yeah. Also, we just got a super chat. Amir on YouTube saying arming group discussion is just peak. Got people with the highest level experience, information, and minds join us and contribute to the community. Thank you, Amir, for that super chat. I appreciate that. That was awesome. Yeah, I wouldn't be able
Next
to do
is
it
you,
with
Rob.
that. Oh, me? Oh no,
To
that was
respond,
that
yeah,
was.
next is you.
Oh no, I put to just read the super chat. I was gonna say I wouldn't be able to do it without the amazing mods here like Ali, because it would be a nightmare if I didn't have Ali here right now. So thank you, Ali.
No problem. Next is Sketch.
Oh, Sketch has a
You're
new
always
topic or
gonna-
response? Oh yeah, go ahead.
Response. You're always going to have a problem when people use soldiers as an excuse to not do soldier things. They're always going to get angry at that. That's always going to happen because we signed the paper. We know what we signed up for. We don't know, oh my God, to protect the troops, you must stop doing the thing that you're doing. If we don't say that, why are these people that didn't sign up, never went to war, never wore the uniform, never were willing to sacrifice anything? Not what I'm willing to sacrifice me. What do you mean you're not willing to sacrifice me? You never had that choice. So every time one of these persons that are more on the how we say hippie, peaceful type people tried to speak for us and use us as an excuse, like I signed up to grab that rifle. I am the infantry, right? Not anymore. But when I was young, that's what I was. And people try to use me as an excuse to stop the things that, and that's just gonna how it's gonna be perceived, right? Because on every topic, no matter what happens, you're always on the side. We shouldn't do it because of this. We shouldn't do it because of that. We shouldn't do it because of that. And among that rotation is we shouldn't do it because of the troops. What are people going to think? Oh, this guy just using any excuse, and the excuse today is the soldiers, right? Shouldn't take that personal. But if that's the pattern, people recognize patterns, right? So if every topic, no matter what it is, we should hold back, we should get away, we should stop, we should. If that's the pattern, a soldier's going to recognize that pattern, and they're going to say, hey, you can have a whole line of excuses. And I'm not saying specifically Ian, I'm just saying people in general that do that. You can have 20 excuses, 30 excuses why you don't like the war. That's fine. Freedom of speech. That's what I defend, right? But don't use me as it, because I'm going to come back with my freedom of speech and say, don't use me as an excuse. I signed up for this. Soldiers can conscientiously object. Soldiers can do a slew of things if they don't like what's going on, to speak it, to voice it, to gain their explanations. And you don't know what they know. You don't know what the soldiers know. You know what the soldiers know? The soldiers know if that they're behind enemy lines, heaven and earth will be moved to go get them. That's what we know. So there's no fear of us dying because we knew we could die. There's no fear of us getting captured because they knew they're gonna go get us. And there's no price calculation. The people that had a price calculation on soldiers are China. They got self-destruct buttons on them now. I saw a report on that. I'm not that specifically, but they have these. It's crazy. We'll talk about that another time. But there's a lot of people that don't care about their soldiers. We're talking about the nation that cares most about their soldiers. So it's not an economic reason why we're scared. Oh my God, it's economically not nice, or there might be two people. We all saw Black Hawk Down, and that's about making sure everybody comes back. And if we die, and we got to do what we got to do, right? If it happens, it's always, and I'm not saying this to Ian, I'm just saying this to anyone in any group, anywhere. If you always got an excuse to hold us back, and you put a soldier in that rotation of excuses, the soldier's going to get mad.
Okay, but
And he's going to
okay,
use the same freedom of speech to go against it.
So yeah, okay, I understand that. I only recently, by the way, myself learned how important of an issue this is for people who have been in the military. So I didn't know this until recently myself. So I think I understand that this is a big topic, a major red line for people who have been involved in the military. So I appreciate that, but I also think that the people who have been involved in the military should understand that most people don't know this, right? Most people don't know this. That should be so. When somebody says something, it's important that you don't like. I think it makes sense to just educate them and tell them why you found something a red line or not a good way to consider things in a respectful manner, even if they were in the wrong. But also, when you say we care about our soldiers, again, let me know if I'm in the wrong here. But one way to care about your soldiers in a country, is to consider whether deploying them is necessary. That's part of that's a normal part of the calculation of a country that cares about the lives of their soldiers. Discussing that is not. I don't think these two are contradictory. I understand the fact that a soldier has agreed to risk his life to defend his country. Okay, and this is their choice, and we have to respect that choice. That is not a contradiction to a country being careful of when they use that powerful that sacrifice. Okay, that is a sacrifice that a man or a woman has gifted to his country to protect his country, and it makes sense for you not to just use it loosely and be very careful, and to use it only when it's absolutely necessary, and try to avoid using it too often, because you respect their life, because you care about them, because you don't want to, because we value their lives, right? I don't think that's a disrespect to the fact that they have volunteered to risk their lives for the country. In fact, I think it might be actually respecting it. Oh my God, these people are putting their lives on the line, so we shouldn't be using it willy-nilly. We understand that, but we have to be very careful when we have to make sure that we deploy them only when it's absolutely necessary. We don't want to treat their lives like if it's cheap, right? That is
Yes, yes, but this is something I want to explain very clearly. I very clearly said a person that has 20 excuses and uses us as one of them is going to get pushback from soldiers. I very specifically didn't specify a topic. I very specifically said I wasn't going to talk about Ian. I was just saying this is something you should expect from soldiers. So I don't think I was disrespectful to Ian right now. If I was, I apologize. I don't think I was being disrespectful.
No, I wasn't
thought I was
accusing you. I
explaining-
wasn't accusing you. I was just
Oh,
adding.
okay. Yeah, but it's just the part of that freedom of speech game, right? You think, hey, I love the soldiers. I think they're great people. I think they're not shouldn't be used for that. And you're gonna get soldiers that are gonna passionately go against that, especially if they notice it's a pattern. This is something because some soldiers won't get mad, but if they notice a person or that is always, and this is especially true when we talk about leftist and woke people who never care about the troops, and I'm not accusing anyone here of that. That's why I try to be broad, because we get this a lot on the outside, not in here, on the outside, right? And I'm especially talking about people who never cared about the troops. I'm sure Ian does care. I'm pretty sure he's here. If he was a full lefty, he would not be here, right? He's trying to have that communication.
We have full lefties
but
here.
we get that a lot. Okay, I don't know. If they're here, are they full lefties really? Because the other lefties would kick them out. Let's be real.
We love Samantha. She's full lefty. She's right up there.
Not among the lefties. The lefties would kick her out if they knew she was here.
Okay.
But I'm just saying, that was on my point. I'm sorry. I was just saying you're going to get that pushback.
Okay, so one last point before, because I saw Jeffrey wanted to add something to this. I just think there should be a difference. We should distinguish between people who are just against any these military operations and they're using the soldiers as an excuse. That's one group of people that we should call out. I completely agree with the people. But then we have these other group of people who are actually genuinely, they're not against military operations as a principle, but they genuinely actually care about the lives of the soldiers. I think these are, even though sometimes they might sound the same, they're not the same people. Okay, that's one point. And two, when you say it's freedom of speech, that's like, I have this allergic reaction to when people say it's freedom of speech, because freedom of speech, of course it's freedom of speech. That goes without saying. That doesn't make a point valid or moral. I'm not saying that your point was invalid or immoral. You could say the most garbage. Okay, Sketch, I'm not saying this to you. Okay, I'm just making a point. Okay, you could make the most garbage, vile points and say the most disgusting things. You could basically call out for genocide and taking out Jews left and right, and I don't know, doing the most horrible things to the most innocent people, and that would also be protected under free speech. Okay, so I don't know, saying something is free speech is not a really good defense for making a point. It only means that the government shouldn't hunt you down. Saying something is free speech only means the government shouldn't be hunting you down. It doesn't add any validity to the point. But I'm not saying you were making that bad of an argument. I'm just saying I don't understand that point when people saying that. Right. Okay, so let's go to Jeffrey.
Yeah, I'm just what Sketch is saying is the reason that soldiers get irritated with that is because since Vietnam, you have non-interventionists co-opting the concern of me and my fellow soldiers as a means to concern wash or patriot wash their sedition. And legitimately, I had to hear that stupid shit for 20 years during GWAT. Oh, but I really care about my troops. That's why we're going to undermine the mission when my fellow soldiers are under fire. If you want to talk about that shit afterwards when we're not under fire, that's fine. When my fellow soldiers are under fire, shut your mouth and stop using us as an excuse to undermine the mission. I don't want to hear that shit. That's how our soldiers feel, right? So I'm not saying, I don't know if Ian, hold on, I don't know if Ian was doing that. I'm just saying that's my unmotivated bias. Read, I see what I expect to see because that's what I experienced for 20 years. If that's not what happened, I already apologize. I'm just saying that's why Sketch is saying that.
Can I?
Believe me, we got our radar on that is like NORAD. We picked that shit up.
Yeah,
like
before
that.
you say something, I just want to say I think you should be able to discuss whether deploying soldiers to. I don't think the only time that you have to consider whether deployment is right or wrong is before the deployment. I think after the deployment, you should also be able to consider that. But Ian.
Yeah, the most infuriating thing about this is not just I come from a family with a lot of Purple Hearts in it, just to give you some context. Okay. So the most infuriating thing about this is that it has nothing to do with the argument that I made. Nothing to do with it. You fully did not understand. And then you went on an attack, and I really resent that. But that's all I have to say.
All right, let's stop the infighting, okay, guys? We don't want to. Let's stop the infighting, okay?